She left to date her ex, saying she'd come back if it didn't work. So I did what no one expected. My name is Liam, and I thought I had everything figured out. At 30 years old, I had the perfect life lined up. Well, that's what I thought until it all started to unravel right before my eyes. I had the job, the house, and the fiancé. I was on the verge of marrying the woman I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, Tessa. For years together, and I truly believed we were solid. But now, sitting here, I'm left wondering how I didn't see the cracks sooner. It all started so effortlessly. Tessa and I met through a mutual friend at a birthday party. She was confident, funny, and had this no-nonsense attitude that I instantly gravitated toward. Unlike the other women I dated, she wasn't into games. She said what she meant and meant what she said. We clicked right away. The chemistry was undeniable, and within a year we were living together. Everything felt right. Our careers aligned, our plans matched, and we were both on the same page about building a future. Together, I thought we were destined for something great. It wasn't long before I proposed. No extravagant gestures, no huge surprise. Just a quiet, intimate dinner at home. Just the two of us. I thought about it for months, and I was sure of one thing: Tessa was the one. When I asked, she cried, hugged me, and said yes. We were going to get married, start a family someday, and grow old together. Everything was perfect, or so I thought. But the first signs of trouble didn't come in the form of big, explosive fights. Oh no, they crept in quietly, slipping through the cracks where I least expected them. It started with the wedding planning. At first, Tessa was all in. Pinterest boards, scrolling through dresses, asking about centerpieces. We talked about it all the time, laughing about the details. She seemed excited, eager, but over the course of a few months, that enthusiasm started to fade. Little things like picking out bridesmaids or finalizing the guest list started to slip through the cracks. Have you decided on your bridesmaids yet? I asked one evening, expecting a definitive answer. Not yet, she'd say, brushing it off with a quick smile. Still thinking about it. Same with the dress, the cake, even the music. Everything we had once been excited about now felt like an afterthought. At the time, I told myself it was just stress. After all, wedding planning could be overwhelming, and Tessa had a lot on her plate with her freelance work. But the more time passed, the more I started to feel like she wasn't as invested as I was. One night, we were out with some friends, playing one of those games where you ask personal questions and try to keep a straight face. I had no idea that a simple question would reveal something that would turn my world upside down. It was just another typical game, the kind you play when you're with close friends and a little too much wine has been consumed. But then someone asked the question, if you could relive one relationship, which one would it be? Without hesitation, Tessa answered, oh, probably Dylan. The room went quiet. I froze. Dylan, her ex, the one who had cheated on her. I was shocked, trying to process what had just happened. Tessa laughed nervously, trying to cover it up. Oh, not like I would actually want to relive it. It's just, he was a big part of my past, you know? I should have called her out right then and there, but I didn't, not in front of everyone. Instead, I let it slide, even though the pit in my stomach was growing bigger. When we were alone later, I asked her, what was that about? Why would you say you'd relive a relationship with Dylan? She shrugged it off. It was just a stupid game, Liam. Don't take it so seriously. But I couldn't shake it. Something wasn't right. Why would she even say that? It wasn't just the answer, it was the way she said it, the way she instantly downplayed it. I let it go that night, not wanting to start an argument. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. Over the next few weeks, the signs became harder to ignore. Tessa had started acting different, more distant. She was on her phone constantly, laughing at things that weren't funny, and becoming increasingly evasive when I asked about plans we had made. Oh, I have to catch up on work tonight, she'd say. Or, sorry, I promised my mom I'd visit this weekend. The excuses piled up, and I started to feel like I was no longer a priority. Then came the Friday night that changed everything. I got home early from work, eager to relax with Tessa. I had planned a quiet evening, take out a movie, just us. But when I walked through the door, the atmosphere was off. Tessa was sitting on the couch, staring at her laptop, not really doing anything. She wasn't even working. The silence in the house felt heavy, almost suffocating. I tried to break the ice, but she just gave me a blank look. "Everything okay?" I asked. She closed the laptop and, after a long pause, said the words I wasn't ready to hear. "We need to talk." I've never forgotten the way she looked at me that night. Tessa sat there, her back straight, her fingers nervously tapping on the arm of the couch. There was an air of tension around her, something that hadn't been there before. It was as if she was gearing up for something monumental, something that would change everything. And in that moment, I knew, deep down, I wasn't ready for what was coming. But I had no choice but to hear. "We need to talk," she said again, her voice unusually soft. My heart thudded in my chest, and I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "About what?" She hesitated, as if trying to find the right words. Her eyes shifted from mine to the floor, and for a moment, I wondered if I'd imagined the distance between us. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice faltering slightly, "and I think I need some time to figure things out." I frowned, the confusion building in my chest. "Figure what out?" "Tessa, what's going on?" She avoided my gaze, her fingers now playing with the edge of her sleeve. "I love you, I do, but I think I need a break." My stomach dropped at the words. A break? The word felt foreign coming from her mouth, as if it didn't belong in a conversation about the future we'd been building together. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. I couldn't comprehend it. We were getting married. Our wedding was only a few months away. How could she just drop this on me now? "A break," I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. I was grasping for some understanding, trying to make sense of what was happening. "Tessa, we've been planning our wedding for months. We've been planning our lives together. A break doesn't make any sense." She finally looked up at me, and there was something in her eyes, an uncertainty, a sadness, that hit me harder than anything she could have said. "It's not like that," she said quickly, as if trying to reassure me. I need some space, to think, to figure out if I'm making the right decision." I felt like the floor had been ripped out from beneath me. My brain was struggling to process it all, to understand how the woman I thought I knew, my fiancée, the one I was supposed to marry, could be telling me she needed a break. A break from what? From us? From me? "Why now?" I asked, finally finding my voice. "Why after everything? After all the time we've spent together?" "Tessa, this isn't just about taking a break. This is about us. About the future we've talked about. You can't just ask for space like it's nothing. We've been building something real." She stood up then, pacing in front of me, her hands wringing in frustration. "I know, Liam, I know, but that's exactly it. We've been building this life, and I don't know if it's the life I really want. I feel like I've been caught up in all the planning, the expectations, and I haven't taken a step back to think about what I really need. And I think I owe it to both of us to figure that out." My chest tightened. I didn't know whether to feel anger or heartbreak. "So, what does this mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You want to date other people? Is that what this is?" She looked at me, her face twisting with guilt. "It's not about other people," she said quickly. "It's not about anyone else. It's about me. About figuring out who I am without this commitment. I need to know if I'm truly ready for all of this. For us." The room felt suffocating. I could feel the walls closing in on me, the weight of her words crushing me, making it hard to breathe. She needed a break, but not just from the wedding, the life we were supposed to build together. She needed space to see if this relationship was even what she truly wanted. And I was just supposed to sit here, nod and accept it, like it was just some simple decision. "I don't understand," I said, my voice trembling. "How could you not know if you want to be with me? We've been together for 4 years. I thought we were in this together. I thought we were building a life together." Her face softened, but it didn't make things better. "I didn't want to hurt you, Liam. I didn't want it to come to this, but I think it's the only way for me to figure out what I really want. To know for sure that I'm making the right choice. If this doesn't work, I'll come back. If it does, then I'll know what I need to do. I felt my chest tighten, the weight of her words pushing me to the edge of a breakdown. So, you want a month to figure out if you want me or not? I said, my voice cracking. She nodded, unable to meet my eyes. I'm sorry. I don't want to hurt you. I just need to be sure. Didn't know what to say. The pain in my chest was overwhelming. All I could do was watch as she turned and left the room, leaving me standing there alone, confused, broken. I felt like I was being torn apart, left with nothing but the promise that, after a month, she might decide that I was what she wanted. But as I stood there, the feeling of betrayal didn't fade. I wasn't just losing her, I was losing myself in the process. I had been so sure of us, of our future, and now she was asking for time to decide whether she wanted me in her life at all. I thought I had everything under control, but I had never been more uncertain in my life. The first week of Tessa's break felt like a fog I couldn't escape. The house, once filled with laughter and shared plans for the future, was now eerily quiet. Every corner seemed to remind me of her absence. The coffee mugs that used to sit on the counter in a chaotic morning rush, the empty space next to me on the couch, the pictures of our travels together. All of it weighed heavily on me. And in the silence, I found myself thinking over everything that had led us here. What had I missed? What signs had I ignored? Had I really been so blind to what was happening right under my nose? I couldn't shake the nagging thought that something had been off for months, maybe even longer. But I didn't want to face the truth. I didn't want to accept that the woman I had planned a future with was questioning everything. Tessa's absence was like a constant ache. I couldn't reach out to her. She had asked for this time to decide. And as much as it killed me, I respected that. I needed answers. But what if she didn't come back? What if this was her way of ending things without saying it outright? I threw myself into work, more out of necessity than desire. The meetings, the deadlines, the constant stream of emails. It all helped drown out the emptiness I felt at home. But even then, there were moments where the silence at the end of the day would hit me like a tidal wave. Couldn't avoid it. I come home to an empty house, eat alone, and lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering where things had gone wrong. Then, after 10 days of trying to keep my head above water, the text came. It was from Tessa. Can we talk? It read. My heart skipped a beat, but I didn't respond immediately. I wasn't sure what she wanted to say, or if I was ready to hear it, but I had to know. So I typed back, of course. She didn't reply for hours. I paced around the house, trying to distract myself, but it was impossible. My mind kept replaying that night, the night she asked for space. The words she said, the hesitation in her voice. It all felt like a distant memory, and yet, still so fresh. Finally, around 9 that evening, she called. I saw her name on the screen and felt my stomach drop. I hesitated, took a deep breath, and answered. Hey, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Hey, she replied. There was an uncomfortable pause on the other end, and I could tell she was choosing her words carefully. I think I've made my decision, Liam. The air between us seemed to thicken, the anticipation suffocating. And, I asked, bracing myself for whatever was about to come. I need to be honest with you. Her voice shook a little. I've been spending time with Dylan. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Couldn't breathe. I thought I had prepared myself for this moment, but hearing her say it out loud made it real. Dylan, the ex, the one she had never really gotten over, the one she'd had a tumultuous relationship with before me, the one she had broken up with because of infidelity and emotional distance, the one I had heard her mention more than once in passing, the one who had always seemed like a shadow in our relationship, hanging over us. Are you serious? I asked, my voice tight. You've been seeing him? She was quiet for a moment, like she was waiting for me to say something else. Not exactly seeing him, but we've been talking a lot, and I've been spending time with him. Couldn't believe it. You've been spending time with him while we're supposed to be on a break? While I've been sitting here, wondering if you're ever coming back. I never meant for it to happen like this, she said quickly. But I needed to be sure. I needed to know if I could really let go of my past with him. If what we have is real, if it's enough. I felt the anger rise in me, but I forced myself to stay calm. And what's the verdict, Tessa? Are you leaving me for him? She was silent for a long moment. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, I don't know. I don't know. I repeated, my anger now seeping into my voice. That's it? After everything? You don't know. I'm so sorry, she said, almost pleading. I didn't mean to hurt you. I never wanted to hurt you, but I couldn't listen to the apologies anymore. The truth was right in front of me, clear as day. I wasn't the one she was choosing. Not now. Maybe not ever. Listen, I said, my voice steady, but the words felt heavy as they left my mouth. I can't do this anymore. I can't wait for you to decide what you want. You've already made your choice, and I'm not going to sit around while you figure it out. She let out a shaky breath. Liam, please don't say that. I still care about you. I really do. I care about you too, I said, but there was no feeling behind it anymore. But I can't keep living in limbo. I deserve more than that. I deserve someone who knows what they want. Someone who chooses me. There was silence on the other end of the line. And then she whispered, I'm sorry. I really am. I didn't reply. I just ended the call. The weight of what had just happened didn't hit me immediately. I sat there for a while, holding my phone in my hand, trying to process the flood of emotions that surged through me. I felt numb, a strange emptiness taking over. For a second, I thought I might cry, but I didn't. Instead, I sat there in silence, knowing that something had shifted inside me. Something that couldn't be undone. It was over, and as much as it hurt, I knew I had made the right decision. The Tessa I had known, the woman I had planned a future with, was gone. She had chosen her past, and I was no longer part of her future. The days after the call were a blur of conflicting emotions. It was almost like living in a haze, going through the motions, but never fully feeling like I was in control. I had cut Tessa out of my life, but I hadn't yet figured out how to heal from the wound she'd left behind. It wasn't just the betrayal that stung. It was the uncertainty. The feeling that, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't piece back together the future I had envisioned. I kept telling myself that I had made the right decision, that leaving the door open for her to come back to decide was only prolonging the inevitable. But the silence that followed felt like a weight in my chest. For weeks, I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that permeated everything I did. It didn't matter how busy I kept myself with work or going out with friends. Whenever I was alone, it hit me all over again. The realization that everything I thought was certain, everything I had planned for, was gone. The first week after the call, I didn't reach out to her. I didn't want to appear desperate. I didn't want to give her any power over my emotions anymore. But I couldn't stop thinking about her. I found myself checking social media, looking for signs that she was happy, that she had moved on. And every time I saw a picture of her smiling with friends or out at a bar, it felt like a punch to the gut. How could she be so okay, so carefree, while I was here, torn apart by what had happened? It wasn't until a month later that I finally started to feel like myself again. I threw myself into work, more than I ever had before. I started hitting the gym harder, focusing on getting back into the shape I was in before I met Tessa. I started going out more, meeting new people, and, for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't that I was trying to replace Tessa, or that I was desperate to get back to some semblance of normalcy. It was more that I realized I could be happy again, even without her. I didn't need her to complete me. I had to remember that I was enough on my own. Then, one night after I'd been out with some friends, I got a message. Liam, can we talk? I hadn't seen her name in my inbox in weeks, and for a moment, I just stared at the screen. The last time we'd spoken, I'd cut ties with her. I had made it clear that I wasn't going to wait around for her to figure out what she wanted. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to ignore it. I didn't need to hear anything she had to say. But another part of me, probably the one that hadn't fully healed, wanted to know what she had to say. I tapped out a response. "What do you want to talk about?" The reply came quickly. "I know I've messed up, Liam. I just need to see you. Please." I sat there, reading her words over and over again. The fact that she was reaching out now, after everything that had happened, was enough to make my stomach churn. Was this some sort of apology? Or was she just trying to reopen old wounds? I took a deep breath, finally deciding that I needed closure. Not for her, but for me. "I'll meet you tomorrow," I wrote back. "But I'm not sure I'm ready for what you have to say." The next day, we met at a cafe, neutral ground. No promises, no expectations. I walked in, my heart pounding, unsure of what I would face. Tessa was already sitting at a table by the window, looking smaller than I remembered. She was wearing a simple blouse, her hair pulled back into a loose ponytail. When she saw me, her face shifted from uncertainty to something resembling relief. "Thank you for meeting me," she said quietly, looking up at me. I didn't say anything at first. I just sat down across from her, my eyes locked on hers, waiting for her to explain herself. She cleared her throat. "I owe you an apology, Liam, for everything, for asking for that break, for not being honest with you from the start. I was selfish. I thought I needed to figure out if I could be with you for the rest of my life, and I ended up hurting you in the process." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You didn't just hurt me, Tessa. You broke me. You broke everything we had. You made me feel like I wasn't enough, like I was some backup plan while you figured out whether or not you wanted me in your life." She looked down, guilt clouding her expression. "I know, and I hate myself for it. I regret the way I handled everything. I was scared, Liam. I thought I wanted to go back to Dylan, but I was wrong. He's not the person I thought he was, and I don't know if I can ever make it up to you, but I want to try." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. I had been so sure that I was done with her, so sure that I would never let her back in after what she did. But now, hearing her say the words I'd been hoping to hear, part of me felt that familiar ache again, the ache that had never fully gone away. "Tessa," I began slowly, "I don't know if I can trust you again. You can't just ask for a break and expect things to go back to normal. You chose him, and I can't erase that. Can't just forget how much you hurt me." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I understand. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I've learned a lot about myself, and I'm not the same person I was when I left." I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since that fateful night. I had to admit, part of me still loved her, but another part, maybe the stronger part, knew that I couldn't keep living in this limbo. "I need more time, Tessa," I said finally, my voice steady but resolute. "I can't just jump back into this. Not after everything." She nodded again, this time more understanding. I'll wait as long as it takes, but I won't give up." I left the cafe that day feeling both lighter and heavier at the same time. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was finally in control. The weeks that followed our meeting felt like a whirlwind of emotions. I was trying to heal, to move forward, yet Tessa's presence lingered in the corners of my mind. Every time I thought I had everything under control, a memory would slip through the cracks. A smile, a touch, a moment where I thought everything was perfect, and it made it so much harder to break free. Tessa had been patient, giving me the space I had asked for. She didn't call or message constantly, but when we did speak, it was always filled with a quiet intensity, an unspoken question hanging between us. Could we go back to the way things were? I wasn't sure anymore. Part of me wanted to forgive her, wanted to believe that we could pick up the pieces and rebuild what we once had. But another part of me knew I was no longer the same person who had given her the benefit of the doubt. I wasn't the one who would put up with her indecisiveness or give her multiple chances to figure things out. I had learned that lesson the hard way. One night, I was out with my friends at a local bar, trying to escape the weight of the situation for a while. We had a couple of drinks, laughed about dumb things, and for a few hours I felt like I could finally breathe again. But deep down, the thought of Tessa was never far from my mind. It felt like I couldn't outrun her, like the decision I was avoiding was always there, waiting for me to confront it. That night, when I got home, I stared at the text she had sent me earlier in the day. "I'm thinking of you. I miss you." It was simple, but it carried so much weight. I knew it wasn't just words. It was a plea. She wanted to come back. She wanted me to open the door and let her back in. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter and stared at the empty room. The silence seemed louder than ever. It wasn't just the loneliness. It was the unanswered question that gnawed at me every day. Could I trust her again? I couldn't stop thinking about how I had been living for so long in the shadow of her uncertainty. How every plan we had made together, every dream of the future, had been put on hold while she tried to figure out whether I was enough. But I was done with that. I had been waiting for her to decide for far too long, and now it was time to decide for myself. I couldn't go back to the person I was before, so willing to forgive, to put everything aside for the chance at love. I had given Tessa that chance already, and I had learned the hard way that love isn't just about giving someone endless second chances. It's about respect. It's about trust. And I realized I couldn't keep sacrificing my own happiness for someone else's uncertainty. I picked up my phone, my fingers hovering over the screen. I had to tell her how I felt, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. This wasn't just about a simple conversation. It was about ending something that had meant so much to me. It was about letting go. I typed the message slowly, every word feeling like a weight being lifted off my shoulders. "Tessa, I've had time to think. I've been trying to move on, and I've realized that I can't keep waiting for you to figure things out. I can't keep putting my life on hold. What we had was real, but it's over now. I need to move forward, and I need to do it without you. I can't keep waiting for someone who isn't sure they want me. I deserve more than that." I reread the message, took a deep breath, and hit send. The moment I did, I felt both relief and regret. I had made the choice. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't something I had done lightly, but it was the only choice that made sense. I couldn't keep living in the past, hanging onto a future that no longer existed. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, the weight of my decision settling in. My phone buzzed almost immediately, and my heart skipped a beat. I knew it was her. Her response came through quickly. "I understand. I'm so sorry for everything, Liam. I never meant to hurt you. I'll always care about you, but I know you're right. You deserve someone who's sure. Goodbye." There it was, the finality of it all. The door that had once been open was now closed. It wasn't the ending I had imagined, but it was the ending I needed. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel resentful. I just felt empty. But there was something else there too. Something more powerful. Freedom. I had been waiting for her to decide for so long, but now I was deciding for myself. I was done with the uncertainty. I was done with living in the shadows of what could have been. I was ready to move on, ready to create a future that was mine, with or without her. The next few days were strange. I didn't feel like celebrating or mourning. I just felt like I had finally let go of something that wasn't meant to be. The pain was still there, but it wasn't consuming me. I was still healing, but I was healing on my own terms. A few weeks passed, and I found myself slowly rebuilding my life. I started saying yes to more things, hanging out with friends, trying new experiences, and focusing on the things that made me happy. I took up hobbies I had neglected for years, reconnected with old friends, and began to invest in my own happiness again. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And then, one evening, I met someone new. She wasn't like Tessa. She didn't have the same spark, the same allure, but she had her own kind of energy, her own sense of self. And that was enough. I didn't need someone to complete me. I just needed someone who would walk beside me. Someone who understood the value of mutual respect. Someone who would choose me every day. I didn't know where it would go, but for the first time in months, I wasn't scared of what the future held. I was ready to embrace it on my own terms. Looking back on everything, I've learned that sometimes letting go is the hardest but most necessary thing you can do for yourself. I spent so long trying to hold onto something that wasn't meant to be, waiting for someone else to make a decision about my future. But I realized that I deserve someone who is sure of me, who chooses me every day. Trust and respect can't be one-sided. I've learned to prioritize my own happiness, to build my future on my own terms, and that no matter how much love we have for someone, it's not worth losing yourself.